Hi, everyone. Welcome to the June 6th edition of Kubernetes Contributor Experience. My name is Paris, co-chair of this fine group. We have a small crew today and not too many agenda items. I feel like everybody is in full motion with stuff that they're working on, so that's awesome. So let's do our reoccurring items first, and that would be new contributors on the call. I know, Vlad, you may have introduced yourself last time. If you didn't, feel free. But I think everybody else on the call is a current contributor. And I know all you fools. Just kidding. All right. Oh, there's Christoph too. So cool. All right. We're full today. All right. Next topic is hosts for the community meeting. I know we do have a hole in the schedule for next week. So if anybody is interested in hosting, and I also have a minor flub, George. I am supposed to be hosting tomorrow, but I'm actually on vacation. I did do the work. I'm gonna plan on coming anyway, and doing it either from my house or just coming into the San Francisco office for an hour and doing it.
I can do it. It's
no. It's like I am totally fine doing it. Like, well, I did all the work, so I mean everything. Like all of the
that's the hard part. I'll be more than happy to take all the credit. Absolutely.
SIGs are all confirmed. The only thing that we don't have is a dev stats graph. Josh, do you have anything that you wanted to present?
No.
The one I wanted to actually...
And given that we're in code freeze, I'm really kind of useless for anything right now.
Yeah, no, and that's totally understandable and fine. I think we need to do a new approach with the dev stats graph of the week, but we can talk about that in one of the working group sessions for dev stats.
Yeah, didn't we decide to do every other week anyway with Kevin?
Yeah, I feel like we've not had one.
It's been like a month and a half. So
yeah.
I think the graph of the week made a lot of sense when we still had a lot of stuff we hadn't gone through.
Yeah.
But at this point, we've been through kind of all of the graphs.
Yeah.
And for that matter, I'm not convinced that it's necessarily all that interesting to most of the people.
Yeah.
Partly based on our turnout for the DevStat session at KubeCon Copenhagen.
Yeah. I mean, with the people there, thought it was really interesting. So it's kind of like
but it was a small group.
Yeah, it's a very niche set of people that are super interested in it. I do like how we've been giving other random statistics about the community. So maybe we shouldn't do dev stats chart of the week. Maybe we should call it like community health metric of the week. And then like, what we've been doing Slack and YouTube and I think we should even do mailing list, which George, mental note for us is we need to respond to Brian Grant and tell him to put us on as owners for the KDev and KUsers mailing list.
I saw that. That makes me want to cry, but we can argue about that later.
It makes me want to cry as well. Actually, let me put this on the agenda so that we can have a larger discussion about it. Moderation. Okay, cool. Yeah, and if there's anybody else that can help me take notes, because I talk a lot, I don't want to type in your ear, that would be awesome. So I just put moderation there as a placeholder. All right. So let's see. I think we're done with the reoccurring stuff. And does anybody have anything they want to kick off the meeting with? It looks like Noah was the first one to put something down for non-code guide meeting. Noah, you want to take it away?
Putting you on the spot here, Noah, as I wrote that in.
I'm sorry, Jonas. Jonas, and you take it away, Jonas. I apologize.
So Noah led the meeting. So if Noah, if you wanna kick this off, then I can fill in. If you're available to speak, that is.
Doesn't look like it.
All right.
Okay, let's try this. Can you hear me?
Oh, there we go. Yay!
Yeah.
He's on.
Okay. Well, that's bizarre. Okay, so long story short, we had a meeting yesterday of what was supposed to be we was originally calling it the non-dev contributor guide, realizing that did a bit of a disservice to many of the efforts that developers are doing, not the least of which is docs not getting nearly enough love, but also some of the other aspects like PM and architecture and things like that. We've decided to rename it to the non-code focused developer's guide, trying to get away from the pretense that code is really the only avenue into contributing to the project. We came to the conclusion that we want to turn it into a sub-project under ContribX, similar to how the dev guide was done. And we're going to have some recurring meetings, open it up, put it on the calendar, and get some more people involved. That's the TLDR.
What was the, I wasn't in the meeting, so I apologize. What was the reasoning behind sub-project and not a project of the sub-project for contributor guide? I know that sounded hella meta, so I apologize. But anyway, I guess my point is, like, why wouldn't you umbrella this under the contributor guide?
It did sort of come up at the last minute.
I didn't realize that was really an option. So it totally could be.
It is, and I mean, we can add you to like the reviewer part of the owner's file, which would give you access to kind of play around and do whatever you need to do, and then ultimately seek out the chain of approval. I mean, I think that might be easier for you anyway.
I think it would also help out with the, like, if it's all in the contributor, like if you go to the contributor guide and then you decide, okay, what do I do? Code, or these don't code things? They're all kind of listed in the same place. That way one or the other doesn't look, you know what I mean? It's like, oh, here's a separate guide for those of you that don't know how to code, right? Like, it's all in the same guide, just in different sections.
Yeah,
that way
that
people can pick and choose, I guess.
That makes a lot of sense. I agree.
Yep. I'm on board with it.
Yeah, I plan on participating. I just had a conflict yesterday. I apologize about that.
That's okay. We're probably going to turn it into a bi-weekly thing, I think. And we'll throw up a doodle for people to figure out when the best times to meet are.
Yeah, doodle. Can you do me a favor and send that out to the SIG ContribX mailing list, just in case you might get some other folks that would be interested.
We'll put it on the mailing list. We'll put it in Slack, and we'll make sure that we get higher attendance if we can.
And discourse.
Yeah. Go Janice.
So we talked about a bunch of stuff throughout the meeting there, essentially establishing the mission and how to formalize it. And I think this is the good one, to have it as a project under the contributor guide. And then we talked a lot about identifying non-code focused roles. So we kind of ironed out a lot of those, which I think helps us when we look at different documentation that we want to write. So making sure that we have the roles properly defined, so we can start there. And I linked to the document so you can read up all about it. I don't want to go through that here in the meeting. It's going to take too much time.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I think that was a super good overview. I think it sounds like a super awesome project. So thanks to all of you for jumping in and getting involved with that. And let me know if you need any swag too. I'll ship you some Kubernetes gems. I wish we had gems. Anyway, all right. Do you need anything from us? Well, I guess, George, you might be in the next meeting, so I guess I would suggest talking about how to get them onto the owner's files and some of those logistics. Cool. All right.
On our next meeting again.
Yeah, and no one minds if we just PR that, right? There's like nothing controversial about putting them in there.
Oh no, I mean not from my end.
Right.
No.
Okay. Yeah. We'll just do it then. Sweet.
Yeah. next is moderation, which we just briefly touched on. So Brian Grant brought up the point that, or at least it sounds like we should start moderating almost all of the mailing lists. There is a huge spam issue going on, and I guess that's to be expected as time goes on. But the problem is most of our mailing lists are, quote, SIG owned, which means that personal folks have that on, or individual folks have that on their personal accounts, which makes it difficult for us to moderate and do kind of like spam attacks. And one of those main groups is Kubernetes users. The other one is Kubernetes development. They are spammed all of the time. I mean, steering committee is too as well. I kind of giggle at that because it's like people selling Kubernetes stuff to the steering committee. I don't even do anything. I just laugh and then archive it. But so I'm trying to think of a way which makes sense to contributor experience for us to moderate these lists. I've been toying with the idea of us getting on all of the SIG lists and like having a team of people who might be already in those SIGs or on those lists to take up the moderation. So for instance, if anybody in here is a watcher, lurker, participant, member of like SIG network, and you're already on the mailing list, you can be sort of a liaison moderator for us and start to block some of the spammers. Any thoughts on how we can take in moderation? Right now, I think the people that we have set up for Slack moderation will be moderating all of our communication platforms, which we only have 4 of us at this point, so that might be a little bit of a burnout. Suggestions?
I don't know what the Google group permissions levels look like.
Yeah, we have to be an owner, essentially.
Oh.
Is it basically just owner or user, and that's your 2 options?
I'm looking in there. I'm in the admin panel now. Give me a minute.
Yeah, I think it's owner, admin, and member, if I recall correctly. And admin is, I think, very limited. I mean, I think admin might be able to mark it as spam, but I don't know if they can remove someone. I think an owner would be able to remove it. So that would mean that we would have to be listed as owners.
And you can only send to the list if you're on the list.
Correct.
Or can you, yeah.
Yes.
Except for the steering committee. So the steering committee, I think, has it set up to where anyone can post to it so that you don't have to join the group.
Okay.
And I don't know if they're revisiting that or rethinking. I mean, Brian made it seem like they were just going to keep it as is and deal with the spam.
Yeah, because they kind of have to leave it open, right? Because that's also the relief valve if any person needs to reach the steering committee for a code of conduct violation or something, right? You want that to be open, but not.
Well, they have 2 lists, right? Like they have steering, which is what they do, steering at k8s.io, which they do most of their stuff through. But they also have steering private, and that's the one where code of conduct violations or anything that's super private, I don't think there's anything they can do about that one. That one has to stay open but closed. Yeah. But they actually do allow non-steering committee members to join the steering committee general list.
Yeah, and it
doesn't really do anything for you.
Yeah, they're pretty liberal about CCing the steering list. I've seen also.
Got an idea. I feel like it's like one of my famous ones. So SIGPM has this thing that they have liaisons. However, they want people from SIGs to come and liaison there. So what if we reverse that? Like what I was mentioning earlier, and we poll everybody in contributor experience to find out what SIGs that they're very active in. And then we take those people and ask them if they want to help us moderate. And then we also then have a list of people who we can contact to help us get the word out in those SIGs for other issues outside of just moderation. But I feel like if we have a list of just like our members and what they're active in, that could probably help us in multiple areas of the project with just communication overall. What do people think about that? Like, I mean, I know I go to docs all the time. So like, for instance, just as an example, I could take docs, Christoph. I know you do architecture. Like, what do you think about that?
It's possible. The other thing that I was kind of thinking, like, again, trying to piece the whole picture together. I know Dan from the CNCF had mentioned that, like, the CNCF could also, especially for the big lists, they could take over moderation, as in particular of spam, and being able to clear out the spam queue as part of their responsibilities. And maybe we want to do that for the bigger lists.
Did I miss that? Anytime somebody offers to do work, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, because I don't have any admin on any Kubernetes list, so I don't know.
Well, right, Brian. That's why Brian asked who he should add, because he's pretty much ready to add them.
Like, are we talking 5 emails a day? Is it like?
It looks like it would be max 2 emails. So I mean, if we had a total of 5 admins on there, that would be maybe 1 a week that you would do.
Well, the other thing that might be a good idea just for like a break glass disaster recovery kind of thing is, I don't know if we have like a quote unquote like a service account, something that is locked away and like a 1Password or a key pass or something like that. That's like a generic account that gets added as the owner, so that if individuals end up going away, there's a way to still get in.
Yeah.
I would recommend against that, because as soon as someone goes away, you have to update that password and maintain that list of users. It's easier to have proper access control if you give a single user an admin right or something like that.
There's a problem with Google Groups because it's decentralized. There isn't like an untiered access control system. Yeah. I know we've looked at before potentially moving over to like the G Suite stuff and moving over to KDS.io, which then there would be a tiered access control system, and somebody who's an account owner would be able to, restore access, give rights, take away rights, that kind of stuff. Because that's the other thing, is like giving owner rights on a Google group and that kind of stuff. We would need to be sort of selective about who we give that to, because we wouldn't necessarily want a bad actor to come in and be like, oh yeah, I'll totally moderate spam for you, and then delete the list.
Yeah.
How do we feel about sunsetting K users entirely and moving them to Discourse?
So I was actually looking at this because I was like, how do I pitch this without sounding like? I actually looked at the amount of people that were in Kubernetes, and that is definitely doable. I think that we have enough self-moderation in place in Discourse to do that. But I mean, we could go either way. That's an option.
I'm plus 100.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that, and eventually the self-moderation stuff will sort itself out with Discourse.
Yeah, like between myself, Bob, and Paris, and there's, I purposely didn't make Josh like an admin, but he's participated enough where he's getting the rights there. The more you participate, the more rights you get. So that also kind of helps deal with like time zone issues and things like that. But then again, we haven't had someone purposely attack us yet either. It has a Kismet in there and it queues stuff up. So I don't, real world, I don't know how much work that is, but I suspect it would be easier.
Dare we put in a cap?
We need a cap to shut down a list?
I don't know. That's why I'm like, this to me is like a major change, and we're proposing something completely different.
So here's, I would be interested in talking to Brian or finding out for Brian, like how much overhead this is for him. Because if it's a lot, then we can make, it feels like we could just do it. You know what I mean? But if it's one of those things where it's like, well, he's more maybe concerned about as we grow, it's going to grow out of control. I'm wondering how, if he's spending an hour a day dealing with this and stuff, then I think we can make the justification for sorry, normal email kind of sucks for this.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't think we're going to get away from mailing lists, period. Like
Yeah.
for all discussions.
I
So
agree.
I don't think we're going to be able to do that. K users,
Yeah.
there might be something there, and I would suggest I would first run it by steering, just
Yes.
from a like political standpoint, and seeing
Yeah.
like how do they feel about that.
Yep.
And then if they were okay with it, then putting out a consult, probably to K users itself, like, hey, how many of you are going to like grab your pitchforks if we try and shut down this list?
Yeah, we'd have to do like that. That would involve a separate process. Like what I did when I did a PR to add the link to the page. You know, I just kind of like replaced it with the forum as like a better default. That way, new people can go to like the sexy thing, and then, you know, you're not taking away the old thing. But I'm just curious as far as like how much overhead there is for K users and K-Dev. I feel we're going to be stuck doing that, which I think is fine. My concern is SIG's working group mailing lists. Like,
and I think if we work under the assumption that we still need to moderate mailing lists in some form, maybe we just need to noodle that and come back in a couple weeks and see if we come up with any thoughts on how we can actually do that. Because we know we're going to need to do that. We can maybe reduce that workload for K users, but we're going to need to do it in have at least a plan in some form that we can handle it. And it's not just for necessarily spam moderation, but it's also like, you know, if somebody posts something that would violate code of conduct to a list, we need to know who has the rights to a particular SIG list to go and talk to them and get it taken down.
Right. Because I feel with, you know, when I help SIGs create lists, like those leads have admin on those lists. Like I feel like, by the way, you're also responsible, you know, if you see spam, for policing up your own list. I could see that scaling very well. It's one more thing for SIG leads to do, but
they already do it though.
Yeah, exactly. They kind of are running the discussions in their list.
Yeah.
So that leaves two lists. So that leaves steering, and then developers and users lists, right?
But that does bring up another group of people who needs to have moderation rights, which is whoever our COC committee is.
Yeah, that's coming shortly. It sounds like within the next couple of weeks.
Right. So what would we do? Would we add a COC group?
That's under discussion. Yeah, all of that stuff is under discussion right now. Whether or not like they need a liaison, that's somebody that's on the moderation. I have spoken very heavily for everyone that's a moderator should be on the code of conduct committee, so that there's no need to kick somebody out. That they can just be empowered to do it. But yeah, no, all of that stuff.
So this is way more complicated than we thought.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is definitely more complicated. I mean, my a personal opinion is that we should just be able to propose K users gone, and I don't think anybody's going to have any objections to moving it. And then for SIG lists, we could add on to the SIG creation checklist that maybe they should find someone in contributor experience that will be willing to help moderate their group, and then we can have a contributor experience owner on every group, at least. I don't know. Again, that's rough thoughts, but we need to. But anyway, we need in the interim, we need to respond to Brian about who to get on these lists. I recommended the people that are doing the Slack. George, if you don't want to do it, that's totally fine.
Sure. Yeah, just tell them I'm in. I mean, we kind of have to, right? Like.
Yeah. Yep. And I'll just say that we're cooking up something even bigger and larger to help us with this.
Yeah, and I did investigate because CNCF has another mailing list provider that they use, and I asked Ihor how that's working out, but he said it wasn't any better. So
no, it's
just
not.
To let people know, I investigated other options as far as lists are, and they don't seem to be any better.
I think whatever we decide, we also just need to make sure it's codified so that we got that that SIG leads, especially when they're setting up these lists, they know, okay, who do I need to add from code of conduct, or who do I need to add from contribx to end up doing those things so it's written down and codified. Because I think this conversation circled back around, because when SIG architectures lists were set up, they were set up that anybody could post. You didn't need to be a member to post. and that's why they in particular on SIG architectures list, they were getting a lot of spam.
Okay, so that's sigcreation.md. It's just another part of the list that we have to add there. So that document does exist. We just need to.
But for the Google group lists, it continues to be true that anybody who's logged into their Google account can post.
I believe you need, for most of them, I believe you need to be a member of the list to post.
No, it's actually policy that you don't. And the reason why it's policy that you don't is that groups like steering committee and testing and release team need to be able to post on SIG lists without joining every single one.
I didn't realize that. I thought that you had to be, I thought steering was the exception.
No, you have to go in through the Google UI to do it, rather than just sending an email.
Okay.
So that you're logged into your Google account. But if you're logged into a Google account, anybody who's logged into a Google account can post. And if we change that, then we're going to need to look at how that affects the teams that need to post across a lot of the project.
Another odd thought, potentially,
Hating this so much.
would be, what if a part of the SIG creation procedure, we no longer let SIG leads create their own groups, and that whoever is setting them up would put 5 people from contributor experience, and then contributor experience would own all the mailing lists and not SIGs.
Yeah. So you're saying just centralize all the lists.
We're just going to centralize all the lists. I really want to do that for calendars too. Like, I really want us to ultimately, not because I'm, some control freak, but I feel like if we have 5 people from contributor experience that own pretty much the communication platforms, that it'll be easier for the project in its entirety at whole to fix issues. Issues being how the calendar is displayed, the mailing list moderation stuff, all of that would just be held here, and then SIG leads wouldn't necessarily need to worry about that administrivia.
Yeah,
I think it's possible. I think we definitely need, like, my concern is if we did something like that, we need to set up a sub-project for it, or redefine the community moderation sub-project specifically, because I have a concern in particular with this, like, Contrib-X is going to do it, because in that definition, who is Contrib-X?
Yeah.
Right? Can somebody just going in and attending their first SIG Contrib-X meeting be like, hey, can I be an owner of a list, please?
Yeah, no, this would be the owners in the owner's file of the sub-project of community management.
Yep. And I did find we do have policy in SIG governance for Google Groups creation and stuff, and I could tell we haven't touched it because it mentions Sarah. So we would have to.
And it mentions a bunch of things that we no longer do. So I think this is the time to really rethink that. And again, that being us being the owners of all of this stuff. Between all of the owners that are currently in the community management sub-project, I feel like we could take this on, and I think the ramp up would be the most work, but I feel like the maintenance of it would not be too much work. Plus, we set up community at Kates.io or community at Kubernetes.io, and could, on the SIG creation procedure list, tell people to email community at Kubernetes.io to create your Google groups, to create your calendar, and then that's what we were intending for that email anyway. And then the people that are behind the email would just do the work and pretty much do the checklist.
Mm-hmm.
Cons against that?
I think we should just start with updating the SIG creation one. That way new groups will start doing it the correct way. And then as far as moving the existing stuff, I think we should just start with ours, and then maybe, I mean, dash developer and dash users we're going to have to do, right? Start with those two and then go from there.
Maybe even a first step audit and figure out which lists we have.
Yeah, so that was part of my audit issue that I filed a while ago, and then we didn't do any of it, is we need to audit lists, addresses.
Yeah, and if we owned it, that would make shit a lot easier. Oh, excuse me, I just dropped a bomb. That would make stuff a lot easier.
Yeah. Like, we don't even know if they're using the same naming convention. I mean, we tell people to use the same naming convention, but we don't know for sure, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we make this like a core focus for the 1.12 kind of release cycle when we're doing our goal setting, because we'll need to kind of shift into that pretty soon, right, and set like, this is what we're going to do for the quarter. Maybe that's kind of a core pillar of what we do, is get a handle on auditing and codifying our moderation guidelines between all of our different communications mediums.
Yep. And Elsie and I actually have.
I have a policy that got PR'd and everything. We just haven't figured out the execution part. And I'm sure, like Josh mentioned, groups posting to all lists because they can. There's probably a lot other edge cases that we haven't thought about that this might affect, that we should probably do a little bit due diligence on, I'm thinking, right?
All right. So a lot of actions from that. But I was going to say, Elsie and I are doing a training today with Jace to do GitHub projects. So we'll start doing GitHub projects and umbrella issues, and really get the contributor experience, SIG, a little bit more project management. I know everybody might be cringing right now, but just to keep our heads on straight, which will also,
like a board.
Yep.
I would actually like that.
So we're going to sit down and do that today. Hopefully we'll roll that out July 1, no later than mid-July. So that'll be good for the second half of the year. And then let's go on to our next topic. All right, next topic is Vlad. Do you want to update us on the bot status?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for waiting.
No worries. And then I guess, like, if you guys weren't here last time, I think everyone was here, but the kind of 2-second thing about what the bot does is it's listening on Kube users now. It just kind of looks at conversations and looks at people talking, and it looks for things that look like, somebody asking a question, somebody answering that question, and it basically tries to store that answer for future, and then if somebody asks the same question again, it'll try to bring it up. So that's kind of the 2-second thing about it. So in the last, I think we installed it like a week ago now. I did some I kind of ran some numbers to figure out what we've, what we've actually showed and how kind of, successful it was so far. Given that this was the first week of it really meeting data, it was kind of an interesting experience. 1 second, let me just share screen. Can you see the two charts?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the numbers aren't big, but so on the kind of storing side, we saw 90 over the last week, we saw 97 things that look like conversations that were a question and answer. And we kind of said, hey, this looks useful. Can we store this? So that was 97 times. And then out of that 64 times, somebody actually said, oh, let me go click through and say review or yes or whatever. And then out of that, only 12 people actually stored it. So over kind of the week that I've been monitoring this, in the beginning, this was a little bit more. I kind of turned it down to not ask to store as much because there was a complaint. Then the other thing I noticed is that I was kind of messing a lot with the text that actually shows up for this. Originally it said something along the lines of hey, this looks useful. Can we store it? There was 0 clicks. So then I put a little description of what the hell that bot actually does and puts a little thingy in it. Then, because the text was a lot bigger on the message, I think it a lot more people noticed it and more people started and one person actually said hey, what the hell is this thing doing? Why is it showing up so much? So then I changed it again so that it's the box is a little smaller, but then I also added a feature to mute those notifications for a while. and kind of like, so I've been also talking to the person that, one person that mentioned this too often, somebody else kind of when George disabled the bot for a second, like this one person that kind of did the party reaction thingy to it in Slack. So I talked to both of those people, and they were kind of like, yeah, they kind of provided some like really valuable feedback saying like, it's a little too loud, here's some stuff to do. So I basically kind of, for them, I created a muting feature. Only a couple of people really muted it, or I think only, so this I looked up last night, it was like 3 people muted it. So that's kind of on the storing side. It seems like it's kind of getting there. I'm working on right now so I was looking at the actual stuff that was stored in the first few days. It was, because the question I think was more vague, it was probably stored like, people just kind of clicked through and said, yeah, whatever, I don't care. So now, now text is a little different, like, hey, this is going to be showing up and this is useful, blah, blah, blah. So I think now people are kind of putting a little bit more emphasis or thought into it, because the first question stored was something like, hey, or something weird. So now people are putting a little bit more emphasis on it, but like what that means is we got to go and review all the previously stored stuff and modify that. So I'm actually currently working on this like little dashboard thingy to be able to go and or like a little admin tool to be able to go and modify the answers and hide them, delete them, and so on. So not to give you guys more work, but if you want to go through some questions and answers and figure out which ones make sense and which ones are valuable and which ones are not. But,
so I really love your approach to doing this with like numbers and stuff, which we didn't do last time. So I'll help. Count me in. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can you post these metrics into the agenda today as well? That would be lovely. I was going to try to capture them and realize that I was like just backspacing as you were talking. So if you could capture those in the agenda, that would be awesome.
Sure. And I mean, these are from like yesterday. Actually, I think that there was they changed fairly quickly.
Yeah. Just put like a date next to it. That would be awesome.
Sure. I'll just copy the charts in and stuff. So on the storage side, it's pretty good. I've been kind of like focusing a lot on that to figure out how to, show enough of information or show enough of the messages and not annoy people at the same time. So I think that's been kind of in a steady state now where people are adding stuff. We need to go back and like review the stuff that's been added to make sure that actually makes sense. I mean, right now it's only like 12 things that were added. So we'll do that. Then on the kind of retrieval side, or on the like suggestion side, there's been 20 times where it provided, so like looking at yesterday, it was 20 times that it provided a suggestion, like, it like understood the question that somebody is asking and it said, hey, this looks similar to a previous question, and then provided a suggestion. And out of that, so when the suggestion pops up, there's like a little button at the bottom that's like, was this useful, yes or no? So out of that, 12 people selected a response, and out of that, only 2 were actually selected as helpful. So that's not, I guess, a good start, but I think that has a lot to do with that whole data quality of like the stuff that's stored in there is probably not the best to begin with. So need to, I guess once we get the data better, then more people will provide more useful stuff. So I'm hoping to kind of like iterate on the usefulness of answers over the next week. And then kind of following that, like once we kind of get that to a steadier state where, some of the stuff is coming in is a little bit more useful, then it's about like indexing all of the docs that, all the Kubernetes docs, and then kind of providing those as feedback as well. So they'll happen over, the following week or like not this week, next week or something like that. Maybe a week from now. Just, I don't want to like do it too early, because I don't want to start like showing people a lot of crap right away.
Right. I feel like this is a really good approach. Like,
I have 2 questions.
Sure.
One, what's our benchmark for success here? You said earlier, like, that's not good or helpful or that kind of thing. Like, are we trying to reach like a number that says like, oh, this works? And then also, like, have we set up a time box for this, as far as like, oh, in 3 months we're going to either continue this forever or not do this anymore? I was not at the last meeting, so I apologize.
So first answer, the thing that I'm looking at is this basically only this number is the valuable feedback one. Is that like, how often is it that we're showing somebody a message and they're clicking like, yes, that's valuable, or yes, that answers my question. So that number is basically the thing that I'm looking at most. In terms of we didn't set up a time box.
Okay. I think we should set one up. You said you installed it 1 week ago, and I think we should give this, I don't know, somewhere between 30 and 60 days. So let's see, that would take us to pretty much end of July. Does anybody have any concerns with July 31st meeting, making a final evaluation of the tool if we haven't already? Any objections?
Sure.
All right.
So that's 60 days, you said, from like,
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
obviously we'll continue to evaluate, but like at a 60-day mark, we'll take serious considerations in.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I have no problem with like whatever data. I think we'll probably have a better idea by then anyway. I think let's see, like if we continue talking once a week, like, and I mean, if this is interesting, you guys, I can continue having this, be part of the status every week.
Yep.
And I think we can kind of like, figure it out from there. Like if the metric of like providing value is going up, then, because I have a feeling like if you give it like a specific date, I'm a little worried that it's like, here's some roadmap items to like make it better, right? And those are always going to evolve. So if by like, 2 months from now, you say this is exactly the cutoff date, then, here's some roadmap items that we've been considering for like the next 3 weeks, for example, that might not make it within that cutoff date. So, I mean, I'm fine with looking at it in 3 months and just basically saying, hey, has this been providing value? Is this growing? Is this, becoming more interesting? Or basically in the last month, has it completely stagnated? I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So similar to what we're doing with Discuss, except we gave that 90 days. I don't know, 30. I don't know if you're in the U.S. and what your July plans are, Vlad. So I don't know.
I am in the U.S. I'm in San Francisco, and
okay.
Hi, me too. Hey, Bay Area.
High five. Did you vote?
Yeah, we should catch up sometime. But all right, we got to move on, y'all. George, do you want to close us out?
Yeah. Do we have a default for when we do prototypes and stuff like that, or do we just pick 60, 90?
No, and
sorry for bringing that up that we didn't write something.
Yeah, no. That's something that I think we should definitely work out. Like whenever we're trying something out within contributor experience, we should give it a time boxed window of some sort. So let's think about that from a longer term perspective, and then also update our charter because our charter can include something like that. So if we are prototyping, then people can see the how and why. So hold on, I'm actually going to take that as an action.
Because we time boxed making a decision on the mailing list for like 72 hours or something like that. Like we should have a default set of numbers for any time we try something.
Yep. I feel like something as major as discourse, so I put to 90 because that's like a huge cultural shift. Whereas this is just like a Slack bot. I did not mean that offensively, Vlad. I'm not just
don't worry.
But
don't worry.
Just a bot.
Learning, it's easy.
It's just understanding what people are talking about. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
it's
just natural language. So easy.
AI.
We all speak English. We all understand it. Come on.
It's so easy.
All right, so hold on. I'm actually going to put that at the bottom here from Paris update charter.
Hey, Vlad. Just wanted to ask if you're up for just discussing chatbots in general, because I built one last year for an online game, and I found it really, really interesting. So if you ever want to catch up and just chatting about AI and NLP, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Okay. Deal.
Cool.
Okay. I'll be really quick to finish this out. So here are the stats for Discuss for the week. Everyone seeing this?
Christoph do you want to be dead last? Because Christoph has an item.
Oh, my bad.
Do you want to go?
I'm good with whatever. If you're ready to go, George, go for it.
All right. I'll be very fast.
Hey, real quickly, I'm going to drop off. So thanks, guys.
Thanks, Vlad.
Cheers, Vlad.
Yep.
Thanks again.
Yep.
Okay, so here are the charts for the week. Everything is up in green, mostly because I posted on the official blog. If you're ever wondering whether of posting on the official blog who actually reads this and uses RSS and reads blogs, it was a lot. So in fact, our users have almost doubled since like our last status. We're at what, 760 now something, Bob? If we add these up.
It was 740 earlier today.
Yeah.
It's 731 active non-system users.
Yep. As you can see, the last 7 days, which is like from the last week, the views and everything are going up. Participation, however, is not as awesome as it could be. That's what this means. This is like daily participation, but the eyeballs are certainly there. We just got to get people talking about more stuff. And related to the moderation stuff, this is the users per trust level, which is when someone joins, the system doesn't trust them. As users use the site trusts them more, and eventually, so these three people are like me, Bob, and Paris here. As people move up in trust level, the system gives them more power. So if, let's say, someone were to spam, and as users flag spam comments, the people who it trusts more get more weight, right? So for example, if someone's participating a lot and basically we trust them, they have more moderator powers versus spam. I just want to kind of explain that as that pertains to the discussion we had earlier. Other than that, I've got PRs in to link it from the Kubernetes IO webpage and the blog.
You had a question, George.
Oh, yes.
I have
Yes,
a very important question.
Sure.
Why is the top search on your sheet capybara?
You know what? I don't know what that is. Someone is searching on the site. I don't know.
Damn it! I was
Isn't it interesting though? I was like, why? I don't know.
I was really hoping for some cuteness.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
Yeah,
so the other into a project.
Yeah. So the other two bits is I submitted to put in the footer of the Kubernetes IO websites and in the blog, and someone actually filed a bug with the Kubernetes blog saying that there's no blog comments on Kubernetes blog posts, and that would be interesting. So it ends up we can embed discourse threads as kind of pseudo blog comments, and I propose that as a solution because we would be able to use our existing moderation and stuff like that and apply that to blog comments as well. So we don't just add like a third-party blogging comment system that brings up its own set of issues. So I felt that was like a cool, hey, I can sort that as well. And the last bit, I posted this in the channel. We also have a method to automatically import and auto-close issues in GitHub and make them into threads. So if we ever have a situation where there's valuable discussion there, but maybe, someone has made a decision or something, but users still want a place to discuss stuff, we have an option now of basically auto-closing a GitHub thread and then importing that discussion into discourse as like a thing, which I didn't know existed until this morning. So that's all I have. Christoph.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give an update to the group on a couple of things I've been pushing forward. I talked last week about labeling updates and that kind of stuff. That is all complete at this point. So we've now expanded and normalized a whole bunch of labels across both Kubernetes, as well as I was able to get access and have normalized labels across the Kubernetes SIGs org as well. So our standard set of labels is now on both organizations in every repo. That also normalizes out the GitHub default label set. So when you brand new create a repo and GitHub creates the standard set of labels, we're now migrating those into what they should be as far as Kubernetes labels, so they work with our bots and our commands. Things like a bug label is now kind/bug, so that we can use the kind command to apply it. I've also, as part of that, moving the needle on good first issue. Good first issue is now, that GitHub standard label is now again applied and created in all of our repos.
Yay.
We don't yet have the command or the policies yet, but I pinged the issue yesterday and Gwyn and Nikita and Carolyn all jumped onto that thread and are all picking up pieces. So that one is actually moving ahead, and hopefully, I'm hoping before next meeting, we might have a command and stuff out there, or at least something out for feedback, to kind of move the needle on good first issue and start being able to use that and curate issues into good first issue.
Thank you so much for pinging us on that, Christoph. It had completely slid to the bottom of my to-do pile, so I appreciate it.
I talked to Carolyn about doing a issue triage workshop, because she keeps getting accolades from many folks in the community about her skills giving new contributors issues. So I talked to her about that. So we're actually going to work that out. And then that led into, hey, why don't I assign you to this good first issue PR? So Carolyn is awesome. So many accolades to Carolyn. So any comments, questions, concerns about anything that we talked about, or does anybody have anything new they want to bring to the table?
Pej, just a quick question. Issue triage workshop you mentioned. Is that for, I mean, we're talking about for a particular occasion or event, I mean, or the workshop is, I mean, it's more like an sort of virtual workshop,
Carolyn's been doing it for SIG service catalog, and she's been excellent with getting new contributors issues and figuring out what a good first issue is, which is what they're pretty much writing out right now with the content guidelines. So I was thinking along the lines of her doing the workshop for SIG leads, and those leads could like dive deeper into how their folks could better issue triage issues for first time folks. Like she's got a whole like set of ideas and things that she looks for, like typos and whatnot. So I thought that she would be really good with delivering that.
Absolutely. No, thanks. Is there any way to keep in sort of loop with what she's doing for us? I mean, or any of us? I mean, I would like.
Yeah, reach out to her. I did give her your triage issue guidelines. She's on Slack. I think it's Carolyn SLV. Carolyn VS on Slack. So just reach out to Carolyn and talk about.
There'll also be a docs PR pretty quick about this that you can follow.
Okay.
And I think by docs PR, I mean actually just in the community repo. I think. I'll follow up on that.
Christoph has a comment. Oh, never mind. Is it? I didn't know. Oh, is it a joke? Labels are also music. Oh, great. Yeah, no, I'm not reading that.
That's a great idea. Plus one.
Plus one. Can you imagine dev stats like search for the poo emoji?
I'm disappointed we haven't made a shrugging person sign it.
That'd be amazing.
All right. I think we're done for the day unless anybody has anything. Oh, Luke, I see Lucas on with dev stats. It looks like we're going to possibly get a new skin, which is awesome. I know you're working with Austin. I don't know if you're listening anymore. He probably tuned us out. But I'm super excited for the work that's going on the front end with dev stats. Zach, I think just turned.
Austin is a champ.
Yeah, yes. I was super pumped that he just like jumped into that. How about Austin recruit a crew of people for us for the contributor site for the front end?
That would be awesome. I can talk to him. We're still hitting milestones internally at our company, but he actually does manage the front end team. So you talk to the right guy. He might. He's been working on seeing if he could get some contributions from them. So those are all Angular 5 dudes. They're brilliant.
Yeah, I know we've got the work. And the funny thing is, like, everybody's like, "Oh, there's no need for front end contributors in a back end all day.
I got to put them to work. I did get
work.
I got 2 volunteers approach me about working on the community side as well. So
nice.
I think we're starting to look good there.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, let's talk about the community site next week and dig deeper into it. Otherwise,
and
go ahead.
Sorry, are we covering your hosting then tomorrow? Who's doing that?
I'll reach out. I'll reach out to you offline.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Cheers.
All right. Bye, everybody. Happy Wednesday. See you same time, same place next Wednesday. Adios.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.